You've seen the photo 100 times. Lake Bled. The lake is so famous, and pretty much everyone who visits Slovenia will travel to its shores. But for those willing to travel off the beaten path, the Slovenian countryside offers gems few are lucky enough to experience. Our journey starts and ends at two iconic lakes, Bled and Bohinj. Along the way, we would be following the Juliana Trail, a 170-mile footpath that travels around Triglav National Park. The 32-mile section we were about to walk would end up winding through deep gorges, dense forests, and idyllic hamlets. It's definitely not the fastest way to make the journey, as the drive is only 40 minutes. But by driving, you end up just ticking boxes, without getting to truly know, the area. After all, sometimes it's about the journey, not the destination. We've just started our walk from Bled to Stara Fužina. Today we're headed a little bit past halfway to a town called Gorjuse. It's a 17-mile day, but we only have small packs, so I think we should make pretty good time. The first few miles are just along Lake Bled, so it should be beautiful. Bled is a fabled resort town. Visitors come from all over the world to marvel at the glacier lake, with opportunities to take a boat to the church at the center, visit the old Bled castle, or just indulge in the famous Bled cream cake. The town has much to occupy travelers. We were lucky enough to be visiting in autumn, when the whole area feels full of magic. The leaves are just starting to turn vibrant colors, and the air is brisk. We've now left the shores of Lake Bled, and we're just walking up the hill through some towns. We stopped by the Bled Castle. It's not officially on the trail, but it's so close, so why not?
Good views of the lake.
Great views of the lake from up there.
We didn't go in though.
We did not go in. You have to pay a fee to go in.
We're too cheap.
Leaving Bled is like stepping back in time. But it happens slowly. First, you travel through the tiny countryside villages where time seems to stand still. Then you come across the farms, many of which are still using the same tools and techniques that have been passed down for generations. You eventually descend into the forest, and it's as if civilization never existed at all. We are approximately 7 miles into the hike, and we have finally hit a proper trail. It looks like we're now just on the outskirts of the southern side of Triglav National Park. So far it's been just really fun walking through the farm towns, but I'm glad to be finally in the forest and off the road. This part of the countryside is well known for its cottage cheese production. Unfortunately for us, due to our late season arrival, most of the farms were closed for the year. The abandoned farms and the dense fog gave the distinct impression of walking through a fairy tale. I think we got just a little bit unlucky with the weather. The weather report said it was supposed to be partly sunny today, but we really haven't seen any sun. We should be able to see Triglav like over to our right, but we see nothing other than just dense clouds. Tomorrow is supposed to be rainy, but I hope since today's weather was worse than expected that tomorrow's will be better. The clouds finally broke for our last few miles. Our weary feet were ready for reprieve, but the warmth from the sun was a welcome change. Less than a mile from our destination for the night. We just passed through a cow field. As we're approaching our destination, I guess I'll let you know the reason why our packs are so small is because we're staying in a hotel tonight. We're going from hotel to hotel, that way we can have a nice warm shower and a home-cooked meal at the end of the day. After 9 hours of walking, we finally made it to our hotel, Alpine Homestead, just outside of Gorjuse in Slovenia. All in all, my walk clocked us at about 20 miles today, which was a little bit longer than I think we wanted today's walk to be. We actually did a little bit more than stage 5 of the Juliana Trail. We did stage 5 plus about 4-ish miles of stage 6. For the rest of the night, we're just going to chill out because I think both of our legs are a little bit tired and probably have an early night before we get breakfast in the morning and finish stage 6, right? Finish stage 6 tomorrow. So we're just getting started with day 2 on the Juliana Trail. Today should be a much shorter day than yesterday. Yesterday we ended up walking 20 miles and today should be 8.5. But since I have a tendency to underestimate distances, we'll see what it actually turns out to be. The forecast for the weather called for rain all day. Luckily right now it is sunny and beautiful, but it's still supposed to become rainy at about noon. So hopefully we can cover some ground before then. Despite the forecast, we were pleasantly surprised to have some amazing weather. Not only was walking in the sunshine more enjoyable, we were also treated to some amazing views that had been shrouded in thick clouds the day before. Seeing the glacial valley spread before us, we couldn't help but wonder what we missed when we were in the fog the day before. We're right now about 2 miles from Stara Fugina, which is our destination. The last couple of miles have all been traveling through these little mountain towns, very reminiscent of Austria or Switzerland. And thankfully we did finally get a peek at the granite mountains in Triglav National Park, so all good stuff today. Before we knew it, we were approaching Stara Fugina. The towns became denser and we could feel the villages spring to life. The spell was broken. We knew we must be close, but we couldn't help but miss the solitude from the previous day. Alright, so we made it to Stara Fugina, and now we're just gonna grab lunch at the hotel before we keep exploring the lake. Bohinj is beautiful, perhaps even more beautiful than Bled. Both lakes are stunning and worth their international renown, but there's something about visiting the forgotten places in between. Experiencing a landscape that's only a stone's throw from the main road, but might as well not exist to the people making the drive. This is the part of the video where I tell you how you can hike the Juliana Trail yourself. Okay, so the Juliana Trail, or Juliana Trail, because I think it's a soft J, is a 170-mile loop around Triglav National Park in Slovenia. So it's a relatively new trail, and even though it's so long, there are a lot of sections that sort of walk alongside the road. So it's not really like a trail necessarily, maybe in the way you generally think of them. This is also what's considered in-to-in trekking, so you just walk from one hotel to another. There might be some sections where you can set up camp, but the sections we did, 5 and 6, were really mostly set up for staying in hotels. Also, since this is an in-to-in trek that goes around a national park, it's much more of a cultural and historical experience rather than like a true wilderness experience. But I think that's really what the trail designers were going for and what one of the appeals of this trail is. Like I said, the full thing is 170 miles, but we did approximately 33 miles from Lake Bled to Lake Bohinj. Since those are the sections that we did and that I showed in this video, those are the ones I'm really going to be talking about. Okay, first, how do you get there? We had a car, but Bled is really easily accessible other ways using public transportation as well. The highway from Ljubljana to Bled is a really nice 4-lane highway, pretty much all the way, and then once you exit, it's like a really nice road just the last few miles. So we drove up from Ljubljana on a Friday night, and there definitely was rush hour traffic, so don't expect empty roads. I think especially if you're going up on a Friday night, like for the weekend, you should expect some traffic because that's probably where a lot of people are going. We dropped our car at the hotel that we were staying at the end of the trek in Stara Fugina and then called a taxi to take us back to Bled. In hindsight, I would say definitely book your taxi ahead of time. We ended up having to call 4 different taxi companies, and the fastest we could get was about a 45-minute delay from when we called and when we were able to get picked up. The taxi ride from Bohinj to Bled was approximately 40 euros. Just since I didn't realize how difficult it would be to find a taxi, I will go ahead and drop a couple taxi numbers down in the description if you do end up looking for one. Okay, so how do you navigate this trail? Well, the trail generally is pretty well marked. There are signs with arrows telling you which way to go. With that said, there were a few sections where the markers were either ambiguous or hidden or missing that I really think some extra signage could have been helpful. Okay, one thing I will say is that this section of the trail, stage 6, is very poorly marked. So as a backup, we brought GPS files. The trail does have an official app called the Juliana Trail app, but this app is really not that great. Every time you close out, it will like shut the whole thing down and you'll have to reload the map. So if you do rely on GPS files, make sure you download the GPX files off of the trail and put them into something like Gaia that will stay cached when you turn the app off. This is in-to-in trekking, so you don't need to bring a tent and you get to sleep in a bed every night. We had 3 stops along the way. We stayed in Bled at the Adora Hotel. In the middle of the trek, we stayed in Gorjuse at a place called Alpine Homestead. I definitely recommend this place. They fed us and the trail literally went right through the property. So it was super convenient. One thing I will say is that I guess we did like a little bit of a miscalculation on how long the first day was, and it ended up being a 20-mile day, which did feel a little bit long. The official end of stage 5 is a town one called Gorjuse, and in Gorjuse there is a hotel called the Sport Hotel. When I was booking hotels ahead of time, for some reason I couldn't find this one. When we got to Gorjuse, they were outside barbecuing and we could smell the sausages, and I think we were both kind of just like ready to sit down, eat and have a beer, but we ended up having another 5 miles to walk. Despite that, I still recommend where we stayed. And then finally we stayed in Stara Fugina at the Hotel Majorca. It was really nice, beautiful views. I would say Lake Bohinj is probably one of the most beautiful places we saw on the whole trek, so this was a great place to stay as well. Okay, so what did we bring? Since we were walking just 2 days from hotel to hotel, we just took day packs, ponchos, we had mid layers, base layers, couple extra pairs of socks, a 3-liter Camelback, and a water bottle. We brought bananas, some chips, some chocolate, and then I was carrying my camera gear. I used the DJI Pocket, my Fuji X-T20 with the 23mm lens, and then I brought the Peak Design travel tripod. So one mistake that I made, I ended up bringing these like Nike streetwear shoes, just like walking shoes, but they were a little bit too unsupportive. I think if I had gone with running shoes or with my trail runners, that would have been better. Do I recommend the Juliana Trail? Short answer, yes. Longer answer, I think we were a little bit late in the season for like getting the full experience of this trail. So like the section between Bled and Bohinj is known to be the cheese trail. But since we were doing this in the middle of fall, a lot of the cheese villages were mostly shut down, and so there wasn't really anywhere to stop and like take a break. I feel like we missed out on that. But the converse, we were also too early for like the really good fall foliage, so it was sort of this in-between time. And if I'm being really honest, if we were to go back any earlier in the season, we probably would have gone and done something in Triglav National Park. So by the time we went hiking, all of the mountain huts were closed, and we really didn't want to be carrying a tent on this trip, so that's why we didn't do anything in Triglav. I'm definitely glad we did this. It was something different from what we normally do, and I thought we got to see really a part of Slovenia that was very reminiscent of like Switzerland or Austria and still very beautiful. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask. I'm happy to answer. If you're looking for a hut-to-hut trek that's maybe a little bit more wilderness than this, then I suggest checking out my Lagaveigar video. That's a trek in Iceland, and it is exceptional, but you still get to sleep in a hut every night if you want to. If you like this video, then you should consider subscribing. I like making these kinds of videos more than anything else. If this is what you like to see, definitely let me know.